Do you ever get impatient? Do you ever find yourself frustrated by the way things are going or maybe not going? Hello, fellow gazers. My name is Bong, and I'd like to welcome you to another conversation as we talk about life, as we talk about our faith, and what it means to live this kind of a life in our world today. And today we're going to talk about a condition of the heart that we all feel sometimes. We all feel dissatisfied, frustrated, discontented. In fact, we live in a world where, it encourages, it cultivates this feeling of being not enough. We feel that we have to have more, we have to be more in order to feel happy, in order for you to feel, to live a life that is meaningful. We live in a culture that breeds this dissatisfaction. We are created, we are encouraged to have certain expectations in our lives. And so we are in a perpetual sense of discontentment. And so for many of us, frustration, impatience, dissatisfaction are part of our daily routine. It's part of our everyday life. We want control so we can demand that our surrounding adjust to us rather than, the other way around. What we don't like, we change. We change, jobs, we change the channel, we change churches, we change friends. We know we should be content. Scripture tells us we should be content. We should find satisfaction not in the material things but in something far better. If we are honest with ourselves, if we are frank about ourselves, we know that we should have satisfaction and contentment, but we know for a fact that we are left wanting, having more. So, what should we do in order to find contentment? How do we find contentment? Contentment, we are learning, is a state of the heart, not the state of affairs, meaning it is internal. It's not the number of cars that you have, it is not the brand of clothes that you are wearing, or it's not the number of digits in your bank account. It's more than that. It's what goes on inside. It's a state of affairs. And guess what? It is available for everyone. No matter what the circumstances might be, or whatever situation you might find yourself in. The Apostle Paul has learned the secret to contentment, and it is available to everyone. And he shares it with us in Philippians chapter 4, verse 11 to 13. And let's look at key phrases in this passage and live a life of contentment. First, we learn that contentment is learned. Apostle Paul says, "For I have learned." It is learned. It's something that we acquire. It's not natural to us. We're not born with it. Our tendency is to look for things that will make us content, rather than putting forth the discipline it takes to learn how to be content. It doesn't come to us automatically. We cannot download an app where, we download it and we get satisfaction or contentment immediately. There are no shortcuts that would lead to contentment. In the same way that you need to put in the effort and the energy to succeed at anything, we need to realize that contentment is learned. It takes willingness. It takes effort if you want to learn something. And so contentment is no different. It must be learned. For I have learned. And then Apostle Paul tells us to be content. I love that word there, that phrase there, be. It connotes that contentment is internal. It is being satisfied. It is having the ease of mind. And it means that you are happy whatever the situation might be. It is detachment from anxious concerns over external things of life. It is the calm acceptance of whatever life brings. It's an attitude of, it's okay, whatever the circumstances might be. The person who is content has internal sufficiency, as they would call it, regardless of outward circumstances. Paul, even with his hands in chains, accommodated himself to his situation. It is something that is coming from within, not on the circumstances. We sometimes find it difficult to be content because we have not learned to differentiate between the things we can and the things that we cannot change. We insist on changing the things that we cannot change, that are beyond our control. The weather, the other people, circumstances that are beyond our control. We let it affect us. And so we end up frustrated and dissatisfied. It all depends on how you look at your circumstances. You might as well accept things that cannot be changed anymore. For example, you're stuck in traffic. If you fume and get angry about, the traffic situation right now, will it help? Will it solve? Will it clear the traffic? It's just going to end up you being stressed and anxious. So learn to distinguish the things that you can and cannot change. We need to know the difference. So contentment is something that we learn. Contentment is internal. It's something that how we look at things. It is a perspective that we need to learn whatever the circumstances, Apostle Paul tells us. So meaning contentment is surrender. Paul could be content. He could be patient because he had given up any right or demand on the people or the circumstances around him. For us, when life goes wrong, our impatient shouts, this is not how I want it. It's not my way. It's not my timing. It's not my outcome. And so we end up frustrated. We end up dissatisfied. Contentment, on the other hand, holds out open hands before a holy God. And you say, God, your way, your timing, your outcome. Surrender cuts against the grain, however. It's not natural for us. We want control, we want choice, we want our ways. The paradox is this. Contentment is gained only when we give up control and accept whatever comes. Viktor Frankl, a Jewish psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps in World War II, puts it like this. He says, the way in which a man accepts his fate and all the sufferings it entails, the way in which he takes up his cross, gives him ample opportunity, even under the most difficult circumstances, to add a deeper appreciation of who he is. Sometimes we insist on taking control of our lives. And when there are circumstances that we cannot do anything about, we panic, we get discouraged. The notion of surrender is something we resist. But we discover that the path to true contentment begins in surrender to Him who is in control. Then Paul says, I have learned the secret to contentment. There's a secret. Paul was familiar with need. He was familiar with plenty. They were his friends. He was so familiar with them that, as the Greek text would imply, he had intimate knowledge of them. He was intimately aware of what it was like to be well fed and to be hungry. He also knew what it was like to be beaten, to be stoned, to be hunted, to be shipwrecked, to be imprisoned. He knew them personally. But something internal sustained him through all these difficulties. He learned something that during his rough and tumble life that allowed him to have peace. What he found was not easily understood then and even now. It was hidden from the casual observer. He calls it a secret. He says, I have learned how it is to be content. I have learned the secret to be content. He knew what the secret was. And like Paul, we can be content whatever we find ourselves in when we know the same secret. A secret that is found when we make these three truths active part of our daily walk. First, we have to remember the cross. For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. This is the cornerstone of contentment. The cornerstone of contentment is the cross. Remember what it has done on our lives. Because of the cross, we are freed from the chains of sin. Because of the cross, our salvation is secure. Because of the cross, our friendship with God is open. Because of the cross, your future is heaven. Isn't that enough? You have everything already. What else really matters? The really big things of your life are taken care of. We need to learn. Contentment comes when we believe that the cross is all sufficient. Second, we need to let go of the past, forgetting what is behind. Philippians chapter 3 verse 13. We cannot hope to ever gain contentment while holding on to the past failures and mistakes, ours or others. There's a difference between ignoring past wrongs and forgetting them, however. Forgetting means that you work through the process of forgiving others and allowing God's forgiveness to cover you. We need to let go of I should have, or if only, or if they haven't. True forgiveness requires that we see the wrong clearly, articulate them, and release them to God, and then walk away from them. So forgetting what is behind. And number 3, take one day at a time, and my God will meet all your needs. The final element of Paul's secret is to wait on God. We need to surrender our timetable and future to Him. Anxiety builds when we refuse to do all these things. We must live one day at a time, one moment at a time. Our focus must be the present. Much of our frustrations, much of our tension, much of our worry would be dissolved if we would practice the words of Jesus Christ. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough troubles with its own. We must live one day at a time, one moment at a time. Then Paul says, I can do everything. If we have learned this kind of contentment, we can do hunger, we can do adversity, we can do disappointments, we can do hardships. We can do plenty, we can do comfort and success. It's an attitude of the heart. Learning to be content leads to action, it leads to doing. Because we have learned the secret, we can do everything, Paul says. When it is time for action, we act out of obedience to God, not out of our need to control or to change our surroundings. We act with confidence because we don't need to worry about the outcome. We already put that in God's hands. We have surrendered. And He can do with it what He wills. Regardless of what we do, win or lose, we remain content, whatever the circumstances. How do we do this? Through Him who gives us strength. There's no breath between these two phrases. The sentence literally reads, all things I can do in the one who empowers me, Christ. The punchline of the entire thought is Christ. When His powerful presence is consuming us, we can do all things. Through our humanity, though our humanity may falter, we may, doubt, or sometimes we may fail, our soul will remain unshakable through the living power that results that's a result of total abandonment. Without surrender to Christ's control, we cannot do anything that is of lasting value. Only Christ can generate a contented spirit amidst of it all. The Apostle Paul knew the difficulties of life, and yet he learned contentment. So whatever our circumstances, I hope that these verses has helped us. And in the meantime, we keep on working and laboring and living lives faithfully for the Lord. That's our conversation today. I hope that you have learned something from it. Keep listening to your life. See it for the fathomless mystery that it is. Know that all moments are key moments and life itself is grace. See you all next time.